So in that respect, the future land use map does not explicitly support the application. Moving on to the general plan.
Excuse me, thank you. What you were just addressing is noted under number 7 in our plan and recommendation, the
Yes.
reference to the general plan and the religious zone.
Correct.
Can you please share with me where you're at in the general plan, the reference you were just?
So I'm referring to chapter 1 of the general plan.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, of course. All right. So moving on from the future land use map, I'd like to move forward to the guiding principles. So with every rezone application, we look at the 5 guiding principles that are set out in the general plan to see where the application aligns with those principles and how it might fit. So for this particular proposed rezone, 2 of the 5 guiding principles apply. The first one being enriching our city center and downtown, given that this project is located in the city center area, is mixed use and will add both commercial storefronts as well as new housing types. Staff feels that this supports that particular guiding principle. Secondly, the other relevant guiding principle is the one that states provide diverse housing options. And as mentioned, these live-work townhomes that are being proposed will not only add housing diversity in an area dominated by single family, but allow for the preservation of a historic church in conjunction with providing those other housing options. There are 3 chapters of the general plan that staff found to be applicable to this application. The first one being chapter 1, and I'll go over the kind of relevance to these at a high level here. So chapter 1 covers land use and placemaking, and the first goal laid out in that section that applies to this project is goal 2, which says make Kaysville City Center distinct and identifiable from adjacent neighborhoods and surrounding cities. And as you can see, under each goal, the general plan provides both objectives and then implementation measures for those objectives. So the objectives you see displayed there are the ones that have been identified as being relevant to this particular application and supporting it, with objective 2.2 being create a distinct city center and expand the heart of the community to include areas beyond the historic core. And then objective 2.3, which is carefully integrate new development with existing uses in established neighborhoods. And for objective 2.3, we have that implementation measure, which speaks to protecting historic structures and maintaining that historic element in the city center. The other goal that is found in chapter 1 that aligns with this application is goal 8, which encourages to provide a range of housing options and price points that help ensure Kaysville is an affordable place to live. With those 2 goals in mind, I'd like to move on to chapter 3, which is the housing and neighborhoods section of the general plan. And before I get into the specifics of this particular goal, I'd like to just briefly state that when the general plan was amended in November of 2022, one of the things that was accounted for was the state's requirements for reporting on moderate income housing and allowing for those opportunities. So given that, staff recommends that these goals and objectives should hold a greater weight in consideration of these kinds of applications than other chapters. So with that in mind, goal 1 under chapter 3 is provide a full range of housing opportunities to meet economic, lifestyle, and life cycle needs and expectations for residents. And underneath that goal, you have 2 different objectives that would fit this application. The first being rezoning for densities necessary to facilitate the production of moderate income housing. And then objective 1.4, which states zone or rezone for higher density or moderate income residential development in commercial or mixed use zones. And then finally, just briefly, chapter 5, which speaks to economic development and prosperity, both Goal one includes 2 objectives, and that goal states the city should promote Kaysville City Center redevelopment to strengthen commercial areas. And those objectives speak to greater densities in the city center, to increase buying power and capture rates, and to focus on small-scale and local services to meet public requests and promote local growth. So after providing that overview, I'd like to move on to the mixed-use zoning district overlay that the applicant is requesting with this project. As I mentioned earlier, the mixed-use zone does require a development agreement up front with the application, and an important provision within that code section is, while it creates a base for project standards, it does allow variations through the development agreement from those standards to accommodate unique characteristics of these mixed-use projects. And so the applicant is requesting 2 specific variations to allow for the unique nature of the project. The first one being the mixed-use overlay zone requires in 1727.3 that allowed uses, that a minimum of 30% of the combined total of square footage for all buildings in the project shall be commercial space. And the applicant is requesting a variation to allow for only 15% commercial square footage on site. And then the other regulation, and this I think I would also like to point out might be a good point of discussion for the commissioners later on. The height regulation requires that any portion of a building within 50 feet of a residential dwelling shall not exceed 30 feet in height, excepting if there is a public road between the residential building and the district. So in reference to that, 2 of the proposed townhomes on site would exceed that 30 feet in height and are located close enough in proximity to a neighboring parcel that that provision would not necessarily be met unless accommodations were made to those units in order to meet that 30 feet. So that's just something I wanted to mention as a consideration before moving on with the other portions of the project. At this point, I'd like to hand it over to Melinda to briefly kind of cover the basics of traffic impacts and how those relate to this project specifically.
Melinda?
Yeah.
Before we move on from this topic, help me with my arithmetic here.
Yes.
I understand that the parapet wall doesn't count. The wall to block I may have a parapet wall to block my mechanical
Right.
above the limit, but the limit is 34. So I could, or 30, I heard you say 30.
So in the mixed use zone, there is that 30-foot limit with the understanding that there can be variations in that to the peak of the roof height.
So 30 feet plus what's required to mask my mechanical roof.
Right, and in this instance, there were only 2 units proposed that wouldn't be able to meet that criteria because of their proximity to other residences. The other proposed dwellings wouldn't be close enough to any other parcels to pose a problem in that regard.
So even though, if I'm reading correctly, everything will be 34 feet tall,
Correct.
only 2 are offending, 2 buildings are offending,
Correct.
okay?
Yeah, Commissioner, if, I think you can see my mouse on the screens in front of you, but these 2 units on the south part of the parcel are close enough in proximity to, there is a twin home or a duplex that's neighboring parcel. So these 2 units would, if the commission recommends and if the city council approves the project as proposed, both of these parcels would exceed that height limitation by 4 feet. We do have an exception section to height limitations in city code that would not include a parapet wall in that height. So it would be that additional 4 feet.
And those abut, I think it's 62 or 64 south, the twin homes, or I'm calling it myself.
Yeah, let me go.
Thank you very much. That answers my question.
Okay. So as Ms. McNamara indicated, I just wanted to go over real quickly. The mixed-use zone requires a traffic impact analysis be submitted with a project like this. Oftentimes, the public thinks that a traffic study would come back and say you can or can't do the project. And that's just not how the traffic impact analysis works. So what comes back is essentially they look at a level of service and how that level of service on the roads works, and then they'll compare that to the project and what those impacts would be, and then compare the level of service after the project. So this graphic up here gives a very good kind of visual of what those level of service looks like. A is your free flow. That really is, like you could almost kind of say that's kind of like your country road where there's not a whole lot of traffic. The intersections are free. You can generally stop at a traffic signal or a stop sign and not have any delay. That goes down from there. So B is, as you can see, right, that top tier, that level of service A shows 2 or 3 cars, level of service B shows more, and you go down all the way to level of service F, which is kind of your gridlock. So that said, I believe, and Will, if your memory may, you may know this, but my belief is that UDOT tries to maintain a level of service D or above at all of their intersections. So this level of service really is kind of more of a convenience factor. It's how long it may take you to get through traffic, a stop sign, and an intersection. So the more vehicles on the road, obviously, the more time you spend on the road. So that said, the traffic analysis that was submitted does not indicate that the level of service would drop in any way with the intersections that were studied. So that included Center Street and Main Street, the intersection here at Center Street and 100 East. So our city engineer and our public works director, who is also an engineer, have both reviewed the traffic study and do not have any concerns with the traffic that this project would bring. And then further, what will happen with a traffic study is that if there are any recommended mitigation factors, they will propose those. And the only mitigation proposal in this plan is just that they have the main ingress egress off of 100 East signed well, and that there's appropriate signage. So there really is no concern as far as traffic with this. You can see here that the level of service at these intersections is an A. It will remain an A when the project would be built out in the future. And then I will take the next slide as well, which is kind of an opportunity to kind of help educate the public and understand. When we talk about projects like this, there's usually a reference to the amount of density. And so we have here in this graphic, we have low, medium, and high density. So your low density tends to be your single family residential. Medium density, which is what this project would be, these are your townhomes type of projects. And then when you get into your more apartment complex, 3 stories, that's where you get the term of high density. So I'll turn this back over to Ms. McNamara to continue the presentation.
Thank you. Just as kind of the next point, I wanted to highlight the renderings that the applicant submitted to kind of give a visual component to allow the public to understand what they're proposing. The first two slides here will show kind of the inspiration and aesthetic that they're striving for in this project that will be reflected in the townhomes. And then the following slides after that show proposed elevations and architectural renderings that would demonstrate what they anticipate the final product to look like. So you can see there's a streetscape provided. There's also additional front elevations as well as I believe the final slide there shows an elevation in black and white to give just kind of a more detailed overview of what they anticipate the project looking like. So with all that has been discussed in mind, I'd like to just briefly go over the findings staff has for their recommendation. So much of this really speaks to what's already been addressed, but the project is in keeping with two of the guiding principles of the general plan. The general plan supports this project through goals, policy objectives, and implementation measures found in chapters 1, 3, and 5. The addition of 27 housing units would allow the city to account for positive progress to the state in the 2026 moderate income housing reporting period. The proximity of the bus stop that is located on Main Street enables a transit-based parking reduction that would also account for positive progress for moderate income housing. And then the design of the project is not anticipated to negatively impact the character of the area. It would provide a diversified housing product in the city center. It will preserve a significant and meaningful historic building. The church that was shown earlier, the applicant intends to restore it and preserve it, as well as modifications to allow for it to function as well as a single-family home. And finally, that staff review has found the project to be compliant with the mixed-use zoning overlay, and the adoption of the accompanying development agreement will allow the project to be completed as approved. So with that in mind, staff recommends the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council for the development agreement and the rezone of 80 East Center Street from A1 light agriculture to CC Central Commercial with a mixed-use zoning overlay based on support from the general plan. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Should we have the applicant come up first? So if the applicant would like to come up and make any statements, explanation, kind of whatever you feel like laying out.
Yeah,
Time is yours.
start by saying, isn't democracy awesome? Should be a fun night. I appreciate you guys being here and doing this service, and I appreciate staff. Wanted to thank them for their time. They've been super helpful to help kind of guide us in this path. I wanted to just briefly, I guess, give a brief background on our story. I'm a longtime Kaysville resident, born and raised, love this city. This is kind of a yes in my backyard project. We want to live in the project. So I'm not a traditional developer. Our family wants to live here. We believe in it. When my wife first heard that I wanted to do townhomes next door, she was like a lot of the people probably in the audience and was a little nervous about it. And I walked her through some different projects, some different things we've worked on, and we both together just got more and more excited as we read the general plan, read what the city sees, what you guys have passed with the general plan as far as how we could potentially contribute to Main Street. And we just got super excited about it. She's an artist and would love to kind of have a space where we could entertain and actually have a kind of a public space with our part of the house that would face Center Street. And we really want to be a part of that growth of Main Street and kind of quietly extend Main Street up Center Street. We feel like it's a really great compromise, and we've been really mostly just feel lucky. I'm kind of weird. I follow churches all the time and have wanted for like 10 years to find a church that we could redo and keep. And luckily 2 months ago, out of the blue, I knocked on the parish's door. I've known for like 5 years that the parish has owned this, knocked on the door, and somehow Rebecca trusted me to, I guess, take this project and run with it, and it fit the vision that their family had. So the Parrish and Harvey families had this church for almost 100 years in their family. They haven't profited from it. They've had different churches that have rented it. They've done different things with the property. Sadly, Rebecca can't be here, and I told her she couldn't come because I know she'd be emotional about the whole process. But ultimately, this is kind of their family legacy, and I'm just feel very lucky to be able to kind of tell it and be a part of it. And they've trusted us with that. So for us, really, when we took it over, the main goal initially was, one, save the church, because that's what we were knocking on the door for. And then two, try to get Rebecca and her family as much as we could in land value out of this. And so it's kind of this competing priorities to try and do the best we could with something that is a big change for the neighborhood. I understand that, and we recognize that there are some people here who won't agree with the direction we took, but ultimately it enables her and her family, who have been great stewards of this for over 100 years, to profit from it and to be able to put themselves in a better position. She's currently at home taking care of her father, and her mother passed away a couple years ago. So it's something she's just barely taken over. But we're excited about it. Like I said, I have a couple of good friends who have been involved in some of the kind of remake of Bountiful Main Street, and one did an art gallery there, and just had been inspired by them to be able to want to participate in that. And it's a home that we want to live in. I mean, hopefully for the next 100 years, keep it in our family and be a part of this neighborhood and the growth of Main Street. So those were kind of our two main values of wanting to start. And then, like I said, as we read through the planning commission, or through the general plan, it was like, how can we meet as many of these metrics as possible? The things that we're asking for, so the height exception, it's kind of a competing requirement. In the commercial zone, we have to have 12-foot ceilings on the main floor, which pushes the overall height higher. So I think in our case, we're somewhat open. We didn't know what the best thing was, because we're competing we don't have enough commercial based on the general 30% metric, and then we would need to reduce the height of that floor and therefore reduce the commercial space. So they're kind of competing. I think we would be okay compromising on some units if the ones that are closer to the residences didn't have commercial on the ground floor. If that was acceptable and we could get away with a little bit lower number, we'd be open to that. We feel pretty strongly that at least the ones on Center Street and potentially the ones that face Zions Bank are really good fits. They're visible from Main Street to really extend kind of that walkable neighborhood that we're going for. Ultimately, I know traffic's going to come up. We did the traffic study. We paid to have that done by a third party. Parking is limited. We're limiting the residents to only parking on site, not off a site. So just like Tucker, we're trying to control the impacts to the neighborhood. And then the request would be, we'll use for daytime parking, some of Center Street parking can be used for some of those commercial. Well, they're not very big spaces. The commercial spaces are only a couple hundred square feet. So we don't envision like anything big, little shops, maybe little barbers at home. I think most of them will probably turn into home offices with people working from home now. It's kind of the vision, but we love the idea of like, hopefully we're not contributing to traffic as much because it's a walkable neighborhood now. They can walk to school, they can walk to go get ice cream on the corner. It really just felt like it fit perfectly with what the general plan asked for that had been passed a couple years ago, and got us more and more excited about the project. So I hope you can appreciate what we've tried to do. I know we're not going to make everybody happy tonight, but ultimately that's kind of what we're fighting for us, is to really hopefully help the parish family and then see this project contribute to the future of Kaysville for the next 100 years. So happy to answer any additional questions you have.
I think we'll definitely have that opportunity after we have the public comment as well. So if we don't have questions right now, I'm sure we'll.
Mr. Chair, I do have some questions,
Okay.
if we could. What is the overall height of the buildings of the townhomes?
So to the roof, which is the measurement, the confusion is 34 feet. So the limit in the zone is 35,
Yeah.
unless you're within 50 feet of a residence, and that was the competing, just those two units are the ones that are the closest. And so honestly, it's more expensive to do the 12-foot ceilings in the storefront, but we felt like the general plan really was pushing for that for Main Street and for this area. So that's a compromise. I think on those, we'd be happy to lower the ones that are kind of along that boundary line and not do the commercial, if that felt like a better use there. And then that would put it below, we can make it below the 30 feet.
So is the commercial, it's proposed to be on the ground level of all of the units, or?
It is now. Again, currently, it was kind of those competing, like, well, we're supposed to have 30%, and when you count the second and third floor, that's a lot of square footage of commercial. And so we're trying to balance. I don't know what the right use is. Like I said, I think for the internal units and for the ones that face 100 South, it would make sense. We're open to not doing commercial there if that feels like a better fit between you guys and City Council. We'd really, for sure, love to keep the ones on Center Street because that just feels like natural. And then even the ones facing Zion's Bank. We've tried to kind of be in touch with the new owners of Zion's Bank and see what their plans are for the future, because there might be some synergies in how they develop that. But I still think those ones that are facing on this side, it's still kind of tree lined. One of the other big costs that we have between, and this is something I'm learning, so we're going to have to bury all those power lines along that. So that's a couple $100,000. Even just the church, I'm learning. I have big dreams, but just to do the brick cost as much as to build the same square footage.
Yeah.
So as much as, like, I know a lot of times developers get this bad rap, it's really not a project that we're just trying to do the best we can with it here and be as little impact and as positive impact on the neighborhood, but also on Main Street. And that's kind of the compromise of here's where we landed for that.
So the commercial that's on Center Street, that would be directly accessible from Center Street, is that right?
Correct,
There
yeah,
would be
so the
doors
angled
and
parking
entrances.
would be, I mean, it's already there, it's perfect for it.
The internal ones, though, those, how do you get to those?
So there's still, we'll have kind of, it will kind of be, it's a little bit urban, but so there'll be kind of an interior courtyard.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Laser pointer.
So everything we try to use kind of trees and make it feel, so like, we'll see if I have the right skills here. So this will kind of be a landscape crossing, and these patios will be here. And then you can, so that connects all the way through from Center, and then from Center around here. So all the front doors face kind of like open landscape area. So this would be a kind of a tree-lined walkway, and then they'd have patios like the front ones could have patios and use them however they want. Initially, I wasn't sure how these would work. These ones, for sure, you have direct visibility from Main Street, so I still think they're viable, good options. The internal ones, this is kind of a barn that's not really shown. It looks like a basketball court that's inside. So our idea was in between the frontage of these is to kind of do like those hanging twinkle lights in between and do a mural along the back of the barn to kind of create this like patio walkway to connect from Center. And then you could still also connect from First South on the other side over here. So
So as Ann mentioned, the mixed-use zone requires a 30% commercial, but you're asking for it to be 15%. Is
15,
that
yeah.
primarily just because of the square footage?
yeah,
on
and
that
that's the
ground
hard
level?
part is because we have the second and third floor, it ends up being a lot of square footage when it's a percentage of the gross. I know in a lot of other places I've worked, it's generally a percentage of the ground floor as a percentage of your gross square footage. So that in all honesty, that probably limits some of these kind of mixed use programs, which I think as I read the code or as I read the general plan, this feels like what the general plan wants, but it is hard to meet that 30% because of the space above.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think as well, just something else to point out, that if the applicant was not going to save the building, the church, it would be a lot easier to hit that benchmark of 30%. So given the fact that this is a historic preservation project, I think that is one of the points that could be used to kind of justify the difference in that.
So, and I was going to say, the one thing for the townhomes, we have additional kind of on this side, there's like a bocce ball court and a dog run. And then I got the idea from Phil. I listened to the last city council meeting for the like hammocking area. But for us on the church, the goal was really our living space and bedrooms is kind of above the garage. And so this is like will be a glass connection because we really want the church to feel like it's still by itself on the corner. And then this also allows us to keep as many of these trees back here, all the existing old growth trees. And even this one that's kind of getting close, we're gonna bridge over roots of that so that we can try to keep as many of the old growth trees as possible. With the goal being, the idea is that this corner can kind of buffer the rest of the neighborhood that's more residential to the east, can be buffered by what's already existing there. It'll feel the same. So the only thing you really have facing 100 East is a threeplex, is 3 townhomes. And I mean, across the street, we have a 4-plex. Tucker's across the street. And then he's next to a 4-plex. Next to us, the other side is both duplexes. So really from an interaction with 100 East and the rest of the neighborhood, we've tried to limit it to just those 3 and then use landscaping and trees to sort of, I mean, it's not going to hide completely. I'd be naive to think it's hiding, but to sort of kind of buffer the townhomes and keep them more toward the more commercial area on Main Street and then kind of make that transition a little bit softer. But again, on site, we have 2.5 stalls per unit. So really more because we've got more garage on our house, but 2.5 stalls per unit. And in the development agreement, we've agreed to say we limit the tenants from, they have to park on site, they can't park off site. We'll also add the signage of no overnight parking on the street. So that's a part of our plans. And then a part of the development agreement that would be recorded with the deed restricting the residents from parking on the street. So similar to Tucker, that would be the goal, is we want to try and contain it all and then use landscaping to kind of buffer those impacts.
Mr. Chairman, a question for the applicant. I think you've started to answer some of my questions. We had the benefit of renderings on what I'm going to call the north side. And, but what the prepared documents say that the church will be thoughtfully connected. Did I hear you say that will be a glass hallway?
So for sure, like the first 4 or 5 feet of this, we want to do glass so that it kind of gives that appearance of like this is disconnected. So it's not like, I think when people hear addition, it's like, oh, they're going to just add on to this church. We want the church to feel like it's still the church and by itself. And so then this would be our garage and just like a mudroom. And then we have 2 little commercial spaces. This would be where my wife was, her idea is like, she'd love to host art classes or do different things here. And then the upstairs would have our bedrooms and everything else would be upstairs, but detached from the church. So this would be similar. These are 2 little storefronts kind of on the ground floor of our house, and then our bedrooms would be up above.
Thank you. And the area to the south of, I'm going to call it the glass hallway now, the area to the south that's underneath the trees,
Yep.
is that existing? Well, is that new?
To this.
Yes.
This is just, we were gonna do like a deck off the back. So that's what that is. That's not building.
Not a structure?
No, yeah, sorry. That's
A deck.
confusing.
Okay. So the only existing is almost.
Yeah, so
that
this
building.
is the existing church footprint.
Okay.
And then this is the only attachment. It'd kind of be where the opening will be where one of the back windows is that would connect the 2.
And all 26 units have a 12-foot first floor
Correct, currently.
as.
Yeah, as proposed.
Thank you.
Again, we're on that one, we're, I guess, somewhat malleable depending on what the right feedback is, I guess, from you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's the questions I had.
Can I ask a question? I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. Each of the units has 2.5 parking spaces,
So
which
they
is
have a-
ample for,
they have
how
a
big is the?
2-car garage,
Okay.
and then there's an extra half a stall for guest parking or,
And how big are the units? 1,700 square feet?
yeah, so
So
their
that's, okay.
total square footage with the commercial is 2,000, but the commercial makes up, kind of that ground floor pad is about 200 square feet.
And is my understanding correct, is these will be for sale, not rent?
Yeah, so, and that's a part of the development agreement as well. We kind of listened into the last townhome project that went through, and we're happy to, that's our vision for it. We love it to be all for sale, yeah.
Yeah, there is a provision in the development agreement. It's the same language that was added into the development agreement for Mr. Holland on that last round of townhomes, where 60% of them would be required to be owner occupied. So that is in the development agreement.
Okay.
That same percentage?
Correct, yeah, 60%.
Thank you.
And so when you're referring to the Holland project, you're referring to the other mixed-use project on the west side of Kaysville?
Well, it is that project, although it was not a mixed use, because they rezoned the parcels separately. So the western portion was light industrial, and the eastern portion of that parcel, or that project, is the RM zone.
Okay.
But yes, it is correct, that one over there off of 950 North in the West Davis corridor.
It's also more dense housing.
Yeah, there was 56 units on that one that were proposed,
Gotcha.
or that were approved.
Yeah, as far as the parking goes, depending on the zone, most of your zones that allow for townhomes only require 2 stalls per unit. And so with this one, we met the 2.5.
Which is generous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we understand that that's going to be one of the big issues, so we tried to accommodate that.
All right, we will let you sit down then.
Thank you.
We will move to our public comment section. Let me just kind of lay out a little bit of how that will work. This is your opportunity to comment on this issue. So here's, some of you have seen kind of some of the rules and stuff that are out there. We ask that you come up, you state your name, and you will have 3 minutes to make any comments you would like to make. During that 3 minutes, we don't answer questions, we don't ask questions. This is your time. We don't want to eat into your time. So you can pose questions, but do not expect the commission to get into any kind of discussion at that point. We ask that, again, just, the normal decorum of a meeting. No, clapping, booing, that kind of stuff. There have been occasions where people have been intimidated from coming up and speaking their point of view because of, that kind of behavior in the audience. So we request, just make your comments. And let's see, I feel like I'm missing some kind of detail here, but after everyone who has desired to make your comments, and we've exhausted that, we will end the public section of the public comment section. We usually have an opportunity to have the applicant come back up and answer any of our questions and answer any issues that might have come up from the comments, and the commission will get into its discussion. Just a reminder that the commission's role today here is to make a recommendation to the city council. So the ultimate decision on this rezone will happen not here in this meeting. We will make a recommendation to the city council, and then in a city council meeting they will discuss and go through this process. So just realize that there is more of this process that will happen after today. Having said that, we will go ahead and open up the public hearing section. So those who want can come up, and I guess we'll kind of take turns.
And there's a timer. We'll have a timer up here on the top.
I just have 2 questions. I don't know if that, you say you don't answer questions. My understanding is if you have that many.
Yeah,
Oh, Paul Stanquist, I live on 2nd East, it's a block and a half straight up. With that many housing units, don't you need 2 access points to a road to get in and out? And I only see 1. And secondly, I was just out of curiosity, do you know what they anticipate selling these units for when they're completed? Does anybody know?
we can find that out later.
Okay, that's my 2 points.
Thank you.
My name is Aaron West, and just a couple of comments and one question. First, for the applicant, I just want you to know that even though you haven't convinced me that this is a great idea for our neighborhood, I'm not against you or the parishes. It seems like you've approached this thoughtfully, and I appreciate that. First comment is, in response to something I heard from staff, that the neighborhood where this would be is dominated by single-family dwellings. I think you might want to reevaluate that, because just sitting here, I can think of at least 60 units that are moderate income, medium density, multifamily units, just within a few blocks. So I think we're already doing that in this neighborhood. Maybe they're older, maybe they're not as fancy, but we're doing it. And then a question, and I know you can't answer it now, but it would be helpful probably for a lot of us if you would address it later, is we keep hearing about state requirements for this, and I would be interested to know what those are and what possible incentives there are, just so we can understand. I didn't know that the state had the power to require communities to do things like this. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Larry Jensen. I own the property on 57 East 100 South, which borders the south border of this property. I have several concerns that I don't feel that has been addressed at all. Number one, all of these units are going to have a lot of stairs. That's not senior citizen capable. Senior citizens are not going to be ones that's going to rent these places or buy these places to live in. Senior citizens are going to buy these places to rent. They're not going to live in them because they can't. Number two, you're going to add 52 cars to this small area with a grade school on the corner and a senior citizen center on the other corner. 52 cars in this area. Number three, anybody coming here to shop, there's no place for them to park other than a block and a half away. Main Street today is not a shopping Main Street. Main Street today is people coming and doing their business in one building, one time, and then leaving. People don't come to Kaysville to shop. It's not practical. This is not going to fix it. Number four, those renting these units are going to be young families or just young couples. There's no place for kids to play. There's no space for them to play. There's no place for them to go other than over to the school, which is not public property per se. So these units are going to be high turnover. People's going to come in, single, have children, and leave. Big turnover is going to result in high unoccupancy. You're going to have a lot of empty buildings there, which is kind of a bad thing, because empty buildings are not safe. Number five, this, in my mind, totally violates the city logo, hometown. Used to be small town. Well, that went away. Now it's hometown. Next year it's going to be metropolis. So I feel that we need to do some more thinking about some of these issues.
Thank you.
My name's John McClure Jr. I grew up kitty corner to this project. Matter of fact, I own one of the duplexes right next to it that it will affect within the 50 feet. But Kaysville's slogan is preserving our historic past, progressing into the future. The broader perspective of that, this is from our Kaysville website, is emphasizing traditional values, community engagement, and a lifestyle focused in environment rooted in heritage. That's why I'm dressed like this. I just got back from Little League football. I grew up in Kaysville. I live in Kaysville. I invested millions of dollars in Kaysville. I own a commercial building, and it's twice the acreage as this, and I have 9 tenants. I have 100 of parking stalls, and they're packed. One thing he's done really, really well, he's done a great sales job. I'm a salesman as well, but he's done a great sales job. He's brought up great renderings. We all know, I can sell renderings, this is what it's gonna look like. But let's actually understand what it will be. If he has 26 commercial buildings in there, he hasn't showed where anybody's gonna be parking. If every 26 commercials has 2 cars, where are you gonna park 52 cars with a school that's adjacent to this area? I contest that you're gonna have over 100 cars going in and out if his rendering's correct. If this is what we really believe this is gonna be, going in and out with kids walking every day back and forth. And what does people do? I did it here. I drove and I looked at my phone. I was answering business calls as I'm coming here. What are people gonna do? One-way street, you go out past going towards Arby's, towards the fire station. There's no good access in and out of that area without going past what? The elementary. This isn't about anything besides safety and a place to park. This is what it comes down to. I have commercial buildings, I have residential places that I rent. There's no way you're gonna be able to tell people that are living there, you only can park your car here. Every one of those people are gonna have somebody, a friend, come and visit them. Where are they gonna park? That's the biggest issue. I'm not against change, I'm not against anything. And parishes have already got their money. It's a really good sales job. Like, I'm here trying to help the parishes. They've already got their money. This is about taking care and doing the right thing. I own part of the duplex. He said there's a fourplex across the street. I'm all for it if he wants to do something that is reasonable. 26 in 1.6 acres of businesses and 27 residentials, that doesn't fit the community or the city plan. It just doesn't, with parking and everything like that. If he was like, hey, I want to do an 8-plex or whatever like that with some business, or just do a business, that's great. But trying to squish 26 and 27, too much. Just too much. It's not why people move to Kaysville. And like the number 2 goal was to have something distinct and an economic, affordable housing. Nothing in Kaysville is affordable. Let's just admit, nothing in Utah's affordable. I mean, it's just not. 1,700 square foot condos, it's not gonna be affordable. And I've been telling my neighbors, in a way, and I apologize for going over, that might be good, because you're not gonna have, their concern is riffraff, I'm lack of better words, but they're gonna be expensive. So the push of affordable housing's not really in reality. So that's it. I hope you guys do the right thing. I like his enthusiasm, but 52 businesses, basically, residents, is not good for 1.6 acres. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Braden Hess. I'm a resident of Kaysville. I grew up here. And I'm actually here to support a favorable recommendation to the City Council. Coming from a generation where I was faced with the option of either moving south, where you see a lot more of these kind of developments, or moving out of state. I fortunately was able to find a single-family home, but so many of my friends couldn't. And I think that this is a well-thought-out plan. It's going to add to our community. You know, there's a lot of parking that's there, and children can play at the school. There's the city park that's near the library. There's lots of places that children can play, but talking about whether seniors can live here with all these stairs, that's really just up to the consumer. Whether they want to live here is really an individual decision. So just as a lifelong resident of Kaysville, I think it's important that we increase the housing supply here so that more and more people can live here. Kaysville is Kaysville because of the people, not necessarily because of the land or because of the grass areas. It's because of the people, and I think we need to let more and more of our people stay here. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Doug Dredge, Kaysville resident. My concern on this is that right now the city's going through this process of putting together a plan for downtown and, you know, for Main Street. And you don't have the plan yet, so we don't know if this is congruent with it or not. So my concern is we're maybe getting the cart before the horse, that we need to wait to see what the plan comes up to see if this even fits in and, you know, if 26 units fits into that plan.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cindy Woodward. I live down the street on Centerville, just a few houses down from this area. I appreciate the thoughtful presentation as well, but my concerns are, where's the snow removal going to go? There's no area for that. This is right across from the police station and the fire station, our emergency vehicles. These are small lanes. It doesn't even look like two cars could go at the same time. How are emergency vehicles supposed to be able to get in there? How are our emergency, already from somebody that lives here and this street has just been turned into a one-way street, it's difficult to get out. I appreciate all the third-party stuff of the traffic and stuff, but it's simply just not true. For somebody that lives here and has to now go out and try to get on Main Street, it's really very difficult. It's very hard. I know you keep saying about the school, for the playground, for the kids. I think there's also a concern of we haven't looked at the kind of demand it will place on our schools, especially the high school. It's really already overcrowded. If you're going to have people in here, you're going to put greater demands on our schools that our schools cannot handle, that our teachers cannot handle. I think that's really unfair. We need to look at these things and have a better plan. Like, this is just it's too many. As it is now during school for drop-off and pickup, there's way too much crowding on Center Street as it is. I have people constantly blocking my driveway, and I'm unable to get out and get in. If they can't even handle the drop-off of the demand of the traffic during school hours, what is this going to place on it? It's going to make it even more difficult, and we should think of the existing residents that are there now. So please take these things into consideration.
Thank you.
My name is Tucker Hunsaker, and I have some notes from some neighbors who couldn't be here as well, but I'll try to stay under the time. To start off, the conducted traffic study, as far as the documents that I reviewed, it was conducted May 28th and 29th, which was after Kaysville Elementary and Davis High were done for the year. So I don't feel like it is an accurate representation of the traffic that neighborhood deals with, especially when we're talking about safety and all the pickup and drop off. I've only been here for about a year, but it does get pretty hectic, and I think the traffic study needs to be conducted during a time that school is going on, because school is going on for most of the year. So I think that's something to consider. I don't know if the traffic report also takes into account future Kaysville revitalization plans, because we've heard a lot about plans to grow downtown, and it mentioned like a 2% increase over the next 5 or 6 years, but does that include the Kaysville plans, or is this going to be part of the plans? Is the revitalization going to now be less because of this major development? Because doing this and then those plans, we might end up with a bigger problem in that area. A big concern for me, especially being across the street, as people have mentioned, is parking. So I cover traffic, but parking, I have a brother that lives in a townhome neighborhood. I'm there all the time. Especially if you have families and that small of a home. I personally haven't been parked in my garage for months, but I have a driveway, and I live in a 1,200 square foot home, but my garage is used for storage. And in my brother's townhome neighborhood, including his home, most of the garages, you have to think realistically, I feel like, and plan for the worst. There's going to be families that use part of their garage for tools and storage because they don't have that space inside, I'd imagine. And then parking for employees of those businesses. If they're not working in their own businesses and have employees, we're talking about 100 East being flooded with that. Also, I was told, and it's been mentioned, that there will be signs restricting parking overnight, but I've been told that that's only on Center Street, not 100 East. I was told that's a matter to deal with police if it gets out of hand. And there's a lot of kids on that street, and even coming out of my neighborhood on busy school days when there's cars parked, it can be pretty dangerous. And then you look at Kaysville Creamery, that's one business that's quite small, and we've had to restructure all of Center Street just to fit parking for like the theater and the ice cream place. And that's 1 or 2 businesses out of 26, 28 if you include the, or 27, 28 if you include the main developers' businesses as well. Also, I heard a no over here, but I only see 1 entrance for cars. There's entrances for people, but I only see 1 entrance for cars, so correct me if I'm wrong, but that's just gonna drive all that traffic on 100 East. I just have to say, I don't think no one is asking for this. I was at a block party the other night and felt like a lot of people couldn't be at this meeting, and so I took control and started a petition only 36 hours ago, and as of right now, it's on change.org. It has 493 signatures and numerous comments from people that live in the neighborhood and in the surrounding areas. Every comment, if you look online, is concerns. This is supposed to be Utah's hometown, but it's the charm has drawn people here for over a century, and I just don't see this keeping that tradition at all. And I just don't think the city should go with the dreams and desires of any family when this petition will probably gain more, but there's literally hundreds of families that aren't opposed to this, and they've been here there's lots that have been here for over 30 or 40 years. So
Okay.
I just hope we listen to those families.
Thank you, sir.
I'm here to actually support this.
Could you state your name?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm Casey Hui. And I just had a couple of thoughts of like the comments that have come up. I know parking is a big concern, I've heard, but the feel that I get is that it's generally supposed to be a walkability type of atmosphere, not parking. I have a young family, and we drive down Old Main every single day. And I often think like, oh, I would love to bring my kids, but there's just not really enough for me to like lug my whole family to Main Street just to walk down like a few little shops, you know? So we'll go get ice cream, but I don't know. I think the idea is it's supposed to be a walkable area, not necessarily everyone's gonna be driving there and parking all around. But, and in regards to the school, I think, I don't know how it all works, but I know Kaysville Elementary is actually, the gifted program is there at Kaysville Elementary. So there are people bringing their kids to Kaysville Elementary. And I think it's because they had the space and availability for more kids there. And so that is why the gifted program is there, because they can accommodate more kids coming there. And then my last thing is, I like, the city plan has been brought up a lot, but I wanted to just read one line just so that everyone gets an idea of what the city plan goals are, because I don't know if everybody knows them. I didn't know until I saw this and I did my own research. It says that the goal is to foster social connection, which I think this does. I think each one of these lists, it supported it to me. So it fosters social connection, support economic growth, strengthen Kaysville's unique identity, which, by the way, I think this adds to the charm of Kaysville tremendously. I don't think it takes away from the charm of it. I think it adds it. So strengthen Kaysville's unique identity while balancing historic preservation, which they're going to do, with appropriate scaled commercial and residential development. So to me, it sounds like Kaysville's plan is to increase economic and residential development, which I think this is awesome. It goes right along with it. So I just wanted to point that out in case that we keep hearing the plan, but what the actual plan was. So I support this. I think it's a great idea. I think it will bring the community together, a place people can walk around, talk to each other and get to know each other. It will help small businesses, and honestly, I think it will help the businesses on Main Street that are already there, because you'll get more people coming and accessing it. So anyways, that's my support.
Thank you.
I'm short, sorry. I'm Maggie McBride, I'm a Kaysville resident. I eat, breathe, sleep real estate when I'm not being a mom and a wife. That is my career. I own a real estate brokerage. There's several things that I love about this plan. I love the renderings, I love the information. I actually know Jen and her family. The things that like I said, there's lots of positives, there are lots of negatives. One is parking. Whenever I go into units and structures like this, whether I'm helping clients sell or clients buy, the biggest issue is parking. This isn't enough parking for in a development like this. There's one over by the mortuary, over by Bowman's, that has about the same amount of units in it, and the parking is a nightmare, and they have about the same amount of parking. So they have to go and park other places. There's not enough green space to sell these and to not have a high turnover rate with families and those kind of things. There's no green space. And I don't know what Kaysville City requirement is. I live in an HOA, and for us to have smaller lots like we did, they required a certain amount of green space. And those are all homes that are 4,000 square feet and above. And there's not, from what I can tell, there's not on that. Another thing, Kaysville has a hard time retaining small businesses. I would love to figure out a way how to change that to help our small businesses. I don't know how to fill that many slots and not have them open so they're an eyesore. I would really like to know how much they rent for. What, they said the square footage is about 300 square feet. That is, I would like to know more information about that. These type of units appreciate much slower. Also, if the market ever turns, they're the first to depreciate. And I'm not going to label anything, but a lot of times the families and stuff that can afford these, they're going to be some of the first to fall into foreclosure. And we don't want that. We don't want to see that happen within our community. My kids go to that school. The traffic there is insane. There's not even enough parking at the school because we have a great amount of parents who volunteer at that school. I help at the school all the time. I usually have to park up the road. I own several rentals in this area. We have massive parking problems for Orlando's and everything where one of my rentals is, and we've contacted the city and tried to get enforcement for that. So that is a concern. I think there needs to be more due diligence done on this before it's yay or nay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Darlene Carter, and I am married to a Davis Dart, class of 1995. And the reason why I mention that is because being part of Kaysville is a big part of who he really is. And one of the things that he felt really strong is that we could raise our family where he grew up. And he's actually passed that along to me as well. And as we have a 17-year-old daughter, we're thinking, where's she gonna live? And the truth is that this state has a housing shortage. Utah is the 9th most expensive state to live in the country. And the only way to fix that is to build more housing. And the other truth is that when it comes to what we deem affordable housing, the bottom line is it's the most attainable at the time. And the most attainable right now is a medium density townhome project. That's what's attainable for people. And, it's easy to say we don't like it or we don't support it. And I understand that, but it hits a little bit different when it's like, man, I really want my kids to be able to live near me and grow up near me, and I want them to have options. and we just truly need more options. I also want to state that I'm in favor of the reduction of commercial. There's a lot of talk about traffic. These commercial spaces are intended to be 300 square feet or less. According to your code, one of the permitted use is an office. One of the ways that our young next generation can get housing is their ability to work from home and run a small, and just work out of their home. It doesn't even have to be a business. If I'm an accountant, if I have a license, if I'm a real estate agent, I can work in my house, and that's a permitted use. So we should not be assuming that there is going to be increased walkable traffic, because there is a permitted use for commercial, which could be used by the primary resident. And what they would be doing is they would be able to either primarily run their business or supplement their business because of their home. I don't want to get into who's going to live there or assume how they're going to live, but I do want to give a different expert opinion. I have been in real estate for 20 years. I disagree that a community like this depreciates faster. I actually feel the opposite. I think the ability for somebody to have a flexible use that could potentially bring in some additional income increases the value of the property and makes it more likely. So I fully support the project and would love to see more housing, not only in Kaysville, but in the state.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joyce Clarkson. My husband and I live just on this same block over on First South and the corner of First South and First East. It's been our home for over 35 years. Our home was originally built in the 1870s sometime, so before the old church was there. We've kind of just, I'd like to hear the walls talk of my house on what it has seen change over the years. I'm not against change and development. I think it can be good. It's been an empty field, and to be honest, I've loved it. There's deer that live there. I walk past there every day. But I think something for each of you to think about, and all of us when we're up against something, is would I want to live there, or would I want this to be in my backyard or right next to me? And that's where I feel like I would hope that you would hear those of us that are close by that have concerns, that have bought our homes and have loved being here, that we can have that security of knowing that we can still have that. So, like I said, I'm not opposed. I've met Jake and Gentry, and they're a great couple, but I just can't get on board with 3 blocks worth of homes on this little corner. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm Pam Hunsaker. I'm Tucker's mom. I live in West Kaysville. My main concern about this is once you open the doors to something like this, then the next person who buys an acre is going to take this as, okay, Kaysville approves this. I can put 26 townhomes on this property. I can make it combined residential and commercial. It opens the floodgates. And I don't think you should open them this wide right now. To put in all of these commercial properties with residential homes is just excessive, and there's too much, the traffic that it is intended to draw, because they want it to be desirable, they want people to come and shop, they're hoping that people will come. I'm not gonna walk over from West Kaysville and leave my car at home so that I can walk around downtown. I'm gonna drive over here and have to park somewhere to walk around. It may be walkable, but the cars still have to come to bring the people here to walk. So if it is successful, you have to put those cars somewhere. You can't just imagine that everyone's going to walk and that this is going to be a magnet. I'm not hearing that people here who are opposed to this are generally opposed to townhomes. I don't think that's the case. I think a thoughtful development that fits the neighborhood is probably going to be more acceptable. But once you do this, who's to say that entire block isn't going to be taken over by this kind of development that's very dense? And they're talking about 26 homes on 1.6 acres, but as I look at that, it looks to me like the 26 townhomes are on an acre with a sixth of an acre for the single-family home with the church and the green space. I haven't heard that that green space is for everybody, and I would like to know that, because that's something I haven't heard. I don't know the answer to that. The developer also mentioned he had his pictures of the single-family home and then the more mid-range where you have a townhome, and then the apartments, which he said are, and then you have 3-story apartments. These are 3-story townhomes. So it is more along those lines. It's pretty dense, they're tall, and I think we need to be concerned about that. I'm concerned about who's going to regulate what kind of businesses come in, and make sure that we don't have everybody opening up a nail salon that has somebody coming in every 20 minutes or so, or massage therapists, or a dispensary, or, I mean, how do you regulate how those businesses are run? And, I mean, I have a home office. I don't need to have commercial space to have a home office. Nobody does. So this doesn't really make it easier for somebody to have an office within their home. So just some things to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Gary McBride, and it's appropriate to say Davis Dart 68. So I've been here a long time.
Would you put that in the minutes, sir?
You can. I think this is an interesting project, and we're not opposed to developing downtown, but to put 26 units in this one space right here, a couple of questions I have. If this was 26 houses, what the impact fees the city would charge for 26 houses? And is that impact fee going to be that times 26 townhomes in this project? And does the city have the infrastructure right now to do that? Or are we going to be tearing up roads, putting utilities in to support this kind of project? That's what we need, is more roads tore up here in Kaysville right now. And the interesting thing, we want affordable housing. This is not affordable housing. I don't know what the price is going to be, but I'll bet each one of these units are going to go over $500,000. And that's not affordable housing in Kaysville. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Austin Eastup. I live, what?
Your name? Can you repeat that again?
Austin Eastup.
Okay.
I live at 5 South, so if anybody doesn't know, I am the closest house to the church. I haven't met you. I have nothing against you or your family. I hate this. So, I'm sorry. With the one entrance, I have a little under a quarter acre coming down, and all I see is that entire space being filled. And it's public roads, right? So I can't control that. But I have 2 young children who go to that school, and I don't think anybody really understands, unless you live right here or in the surrounding area of the school. When that school gets out, it is packed. I have to walk through cars to get to my front door. Most of the time, I can't pull in my driveway because there's cars everywhere. So now we're gonna add 26, 27, doesn't matter. What? I don't know what she said. You're gonna add all these cars, and then, you know, their cousins, their friends, their family. This entire place is gonna be packed, and it's terrible. And all I can think about is the safety of my children, and yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Matt Macy. I live a block east of this proposed development.
My concerns are a few. Well, actually, let me give a few kudos. I love creative development and super excited that somebody would restore and maintain that little chapel. It's not viable for a sizable congregation, but it adds to the charm of this old side of Kaysville. My concerns are, one, the economic development, or excuse me, the economic viability of these businesses. Next door to the creamery is a very usable commercial space that lies empty, and above that is empty as well. If we have demand, why are we not investing there and boosting what is our little charming historic Main Street? My concern is similar to all of the others that have been mentioned. I think I would potentially get on board. Nobody's asking my opinion, but I could get on board if it's 12 units. That seems somewhat viable. The concern about affordable housing, if you just walk the neighborhood, you've heard already from Aaron West that there are at least 60 rental units in this 10-block area. There's affordable opportunities there. Multifamily, certainly. But I would also just say, if you walk the neighborhood, you'll see that there are modest homes. If this proposed unit would be sold for $400,000, you could buy a single family dwelling for $400,000, just one block east. Affordable is very subjective, of course. I have real concern that this would be a target on all of these homes. I think with any proposed idea like this, there's always the NIMBY, not in my backyard, response. I think as a homeowner that is local, it's not that it's not in my backyard. I would love it. It's creative, it's exciting, but you also just have to leave some yard. Right, for all the rest of us that are sitting on a half an acre, it really just puts a commercial price tag and say, all right, how can I develop mine in the exact same way? And if it's not me, it's the very next homeowner. I have a concern that maybe today it's 60% owner occupied, but what happens in 5 and 10 years when there's a new council and there's new neighbors and new everybody else, suddenly those commitments are not quite as solid. I really would welcome this family. I think an artsy, creative developer seems terrific, but it's probably 12 units or less. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, my name is Mike Bryant, Kaysville resident. Thanks for taking the time to do this. I just wanted to go on the record saying that I oppose. I also signed the petition. I heard enrichment earlier, and it just seems like everybody's focused on enriching for the next people to come in, not enriching for the people that are already here. We're talking about a historical building, but we're turning it into part of a family home instead of making it like a museum, like a history museum for Kaysville, right? Or an art gallery. I talked to one of the city council members that said that we had a lot of art stashed away that could go into something like that instead of making it a part of someone's home, right? And I mean, with the one entrance and the packed area with cars, it's just, we're turning more into a concrete jungle than we are a hometown. Affordable housing, right? I think a few people have already said that this isn't going to be affordable. My suggestion, right, and that's, take it for what it is, why not make a quarter-acre lots, put 3 or 4 in there with lower end finishes, not granite countertops and tile and hardwood, like nice fancy houses with high-end finishes that prices people out of the market, and then allow them to have the space to build and grow with the small family, with a small backyard. I mean, that's why I moved here 10 years ago. It's a hometown feel. I appreciate on a Sunday morning, still being able to drive down Kaysville Main Street and maybe see 2 or 3 cars early in the morning. And I just hope that it can stay that way with the Main Street area. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to comment?
This will be short, and I just have a question about I don't know if you can answer this after. My name's Jenny Meesey, and I just live right up the street. But as I'm looking at the rendering, everyone's saying that it's so amazing, but I'm trying to figure out even how, at the top of this T, how would these cars even back out? Would the car have to reverse past 2 homes and then even turn out? I mean, it looks like chaos to me. I'm trying to just even understand how this would work inside this drawing, much less on our streets. And I do think, I've heard other people say that Main Street has struggled to keep businesses viable. And I think part of that is because there's no parking. And like we heard someone else say, the ice cream shop, just to keep that, the parking for that, we've had to create a new place right on the side of this property, just to even keep that shop in business. And I don't know, this doesn't make sense to me. I think that, I agree that if there were fewer, maybe I could get on board with that. I think a lot of us could, but this seems like a mistake.
Thank you.
Hi. My name's Michael Larson. I live about 3 blocks from here, 481 Oak Lane. And I walked in a little late, I apologize, but I would like to express my support for this project. I'm assuming that's likely an unpopular sentiment, but a couple of things. First one is just principles based. I think that a lot of people around here would agree that people who own the land should be able to make a lot of choices about what goes on their land. I know this is a little different than what's gone on in Kaysville before, but we're not a farm community anymore. We're firmly a suburb in a pretty fast-growing metropolitan area. The Wasatch Front's got quite a few people now, so the days of farming Kaysville are over, unfortunately, for some. The argument that people should have a say in the design or the development. I think that cities have zoning for a reason. You can't go and do anything completely crazy, but this is what starter homes are now anymore. And we have a severe housing shortage. There's not enough land. We have some geographic issues. We just have a limit of land here in Utah, and we do need to utilize it. And some person went and assembled this and is putting it together. And I think they should have the right to put in something that seems completely reasonable and will benefit the community in a lot of ways. On what is vacant land, and they're even going to renovate an old church, a historic building, kind of bring that back to life, so that is a cool part of it. And then there's also some economic benefits that'll go on that can activate that area right here, tie in with the businesses on Main Street. So There are some people nearby who would love to see this happen.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Emma West, and I live on the corner of 2nd South and 2nd East. And, you know, I'm down in this area all the time. I agree with a lot of things that have been said. Maintaining historic property and trying to build the city in a thoughtful way is important. And I've appreciated like the plans and places that we can leave our comments about what the city plan should be going forward. But I don't think that it's time to create this kind of development right now. The plans haven't even been put in place. Retail hasn't been said, oh, we think it should be on First East. I think we're opening the can of worms that we might not be able to get back. I think the retail should be farther to the west, and residential, there should be a clear delineation there. And I think retail is going to be great. I mean, we've got Zion's and the city properties and gas station, all of that is great, but I think after that, the retail doesn't belong. And I think the density is great, but I don't think it's this dense is appropriate for all the reasons that have been mentioned. Infrastructure, snow removal, how do you get out? How will the turnover be? Will it be owner occupied? From what I've seen in the 60 rental units that are already in our neighborhood, there's a lot of high turnover, and I live next to a rental that was supposed to be owner occupied, and it's been not for a long time. So I don't know. I just think, of course, we can't see the future, but I think we need to take our time and not start with this and dense and bringing business into the residential area, because I think it could have some unintended consequences.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Andrew Lloyd. I recently moved back to Kaysville, third generation Dart. Most of the people I grew up with are now in West Kaysville. Where's the next generation going to go? I'm a loan officer and realtor. I work from home. Maybe once a quarter I'll have a client drop off some paperwork. Most everything else is done online. That basement commercial piece I think is awesome. If I wasn't further along in my career, this would be the perfect place for someone like me. You don't know how many people are going to visit your commercial space depending on what kind it is. So this is a new affordable house. This is Utah. This is where we're at. Townhomes are the future. Glad this isn't apartments. Medium density is awesome. So I'm for this. I think it's awesome.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, we will go ahead and close the public hearing portion then of this discussion. And we will move to discussion with the commission.
Mr. Chair, could we get the applicant up for a couple of more questions and maybe any comments he might have based on
Yeah,
the
would you be
comments?
willing to come up and address some of our questions?
Happy to. Question I've got, a couple of questions. I mean, I guess the idea here is that you're selling the units with the commercial space on the bottom, so
Correct.
it's not
It's a live
being
work.
centrally leased.
Yeah.
It goes with the unit.
Correct. Yeah, it's not condoized, so the owner who lives in it owns the commercial space.
Okay. Do you have any idea about what the price range maybe of these units at this
I
point?
mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've asked around. I think, I mean, anywhere from 500 and up probably.
Hmm.
I wish it was more affordable, but again, like everyone said, it's kind of a chicken and egg, right? To make it more affordable, I probably we
Yeah.
need more units, right? So, that's where the market's at today. I don't know, once it's built, I guess we'll see where it comes. I think one of the things that got me excited, I wouldn't dare to call that affordable because I think it's crazy that that's where we're at today, but I think there could be a potential that there could be some income from that if the owner living in it could lease it or could have their business pay part of the mortgage type of a thing. So it does add some level of affordability or opportunity, kind of like a mother-in-law apartment would.
And will there be like a deed restriction on there saying that the ground level cannot be converted to residential? Or
I'm
is
not
that
exactly sure what's
possible?
included in our development agreement. I don't think had anything. I mean, I think it's flexible use, so they can use it for the light retail or light commercial as defined. And then, I don't know, some people might use it as either a home office or you could probably put a bedroom down there. I don't think there's a restriction from it becoming that if they wanted a fourth bedroom.
Melinda or Ann, do you know if I haven't looked through the development agregement in detail to see if that's.
That's not addressed.
That's not
Yeah.
okay.
Something
not
we
a
could add
provision
in
there.
if that's the planning commission's.
So it would be possible that someone could buy the unit and
not-
convert it
Yeah.
to residential space.
I mean, it's just open space at this point, and it's like 250 square feet. I know some people said 300 or 200, but it's like 250 square feet.
Yeah, okay. That's all the questions that I have, Mr. Chair, but I'm, ready to have, when we are ready to have our discussion, got a lot of things to talk
there's a lot.
about.
But since we have them up here, are there other questions that you have for the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, please. You mentioned that a couple of times in your initial presentation that I think you used the word malleable. You're flexible on this. Commissioner Summercorn asked about a price point, but you've done a pro forma, and do you need 12 feet of commercial space on the bottom and you don't have to answer this in this forum, but do you really need 12 feet of commercial on the bottom to make this project work?
No, honestly, it's more expensive to do it that way. It'd be cheaper to just do it as townhomes. So I think the commercial and even the amount of commercial was really driven more by our response to the general plan and not knowing how to deal with the requirement of the zone that we're trying to work within. And so I guess that's where we're somewhat malleable. I do think on Center Street, it makes perfect sense to add to Main Street. I will say before I knocked on the parish's door, I knocked on the Nyberg store who owned the Barnes Bank corner building. And there are tenants in those spaces that are empty, so they do pay lease. They're just not active tenants. And I would love to think that we could kind of catalyze the owners of the Main Street commercial to see that like there is, I mean, it's a blast to go drive by and see the ice cream shop. There's always a line out the door. I've never been to Orlando's that I haven't had to wait in line for. So there's clearly is support for it, but ultimately there just aren't many opportunities to be on Main Street or close to it. So I think our hope as we talk to staff would be, we'd love to think we could catalyze some of those things turning over and see some of those other spaces on Main Street come to life too, so.
Also, please, there was a lot of discussion about access points.
Mm-hmm.
Can you, either with the laser pointer, or please confirm where can I drive in with my fire truck?
And so this is all building code driven. So the fire truck access is here and then they park. So every side has to be within like 150 feet. So the end of that fire access is here. So they're not coming in and turning around. They would come in and kind of stage here to access all the units. So every unit, they're within the required 150 feet, either from this spot or from a street. So everything's accessed that way.
Excuse me, if I live in this T space, how do I get in there?
So
To your left,
so
there,
here?
above.
Here?
To the, above that?
This one.
There.
Yeah. So everything accesses off of 100 South, and then they can go right or left, obviously depending on, I would imagine if school's in, most people will go right to get out.
Sorry. This is not a wall, or it is?
No, that's sidewalk. So this, anything that's kind of the gray color is all walkway. So every house has a front door that fronts onto kind of a plaza or walkway or landscaped area. And then the driveways are to the back. So everything's accessed off kind of the alleyways. And this has been, I've worked on projects for other developers in Salt Lake and other places where we've done a lot of this alley access. The idea is that you try to keep pedestrian access to the front of the building and away from the cars, and then the cars access from the alleyways.
So is it accurate to say that 100 East is the only access point?
Yeah. And I think for us, that's maybe pliable. We wanted to remove the access points on Center Street to have this continuous parking that's already there.
Another question that came up during the public hearing was about common area or common space. I heard you say something about a hammock space. Share with us, where are the common
Yeah,
areas?
so it's all on this north side yard, or south side yard. We were gonna put in a little playground. We thought to put kind of playground here, but the more we thought about it, it's like the park or the school is across the street. And so, I mean, one of the first houses we built was on 400 East, and we always walked our kids down to the elementary school and had them play at the playground there, so.
But if you were platting this today, the HOA or the common space would all be on that north?
Correct.
Okay.
So all of that space that's around the church, that all would be for the home?
Private, yeah. And so the idea was kind of to keep the trees and that, just to keep that separation from the new stuff for the neighborhood. So the idea was to use that as a buffer.
So I'm loading from an alley and I have no driveway?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Similar to, I know like Destination Homes, a lot of their development, Hill Farms has kind of alley load idea.
Thank you. Other questions?
I'm sure we'll probably come up with some more things that we'll want to ask you here. But we'll let you sit down for the moment, yeah. And let's dive into our discussion.
I understand.
We've got quite a few things here to.
Chair Packer, I can address a few of the questions that came up during the public hearing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
The commission's okay with that? So one question that came up was whether or not a secondary ingress would be required due to the number of units. That is required at 30, so fire code would only require one entrance or exit for this project. Another question came up about the moderate income housing, and I'll try and give a very brief answer to a very complex, layered topic. First of all, cities are a subsidy, or we are created by the state. The state allows cities to exist. So can the state make us do things? Absolutely they can, and they do all the time. Not my favorite part of my job. That's another thing. But over the last, let's say, 10 years, the state legislature has put more and more requirements into our land use code, the state's land use code. Part of that is that each general plan has to have a section on moderate income housing. So we have that section in our plan. There is a menu of items in state code that cities are allowed to select to include in that plan. A lot of those items, frankly, are not appropriate for or would not work in Kaysville. Some of those have to do with fixed transit, those type of things that Kaysville just doesn't have. So we're really limited on some of the options that we can select from that menu. And then we are required every year to submit a state or a report to the state on those items that we've included in our general plan. So I just submitted the report. It was due August 1st. I actually got it in the day before. We report on every application that comes in that would fit the items that we selected and added into our general plan. That's in chapter 3 of our general plan. Our general plan is on the website if you want to go and look at that. I think the chapter starts on page 53 for, or I think the goals and objectives for that is on page 53 of the general plan. But in this instance, next year, we will report to the state what this application was, because one of the items that we've selected is to rezone for densities that may produce moderate income housing. We've also said that we would rezone to next to commercial centers or to employment centers, and this fits that one as well. So at the end of July next year, I'll be submitting a report. We will have to relay to the state what the outcomes were of these applications. And there's other items that we've included about parking reductions, those types of things. So we report to the state in this annual report all of the actions that were taken during the year prior. And there are some significant negative consequences if a city is found to be in non-compliance. The state could fine us daily. The state could take away some of our funding opportunities. We get road funding through the state. They could take some of that money. It comes from the gas tax. And they could also prohibit our ability to apply for a certain type of grants. So that was actually probably a little bit longer than I wanted to spend, but yes, the state can require us, and they do require us. Not all cities have to, not all cities fall in the category. You have to be a certain size. But Kaysville is one of the, I think it's 92 cities that are required to report on this moderate income housing each year.
So just to make sure that I'm understanding correctly, if we are not in compliance, if we lose like UDOT funding for our roads, then who pays for that? The city and in turn the taxpayer, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, so there's a very complicated formula of how the state distributes gas tax money. It's population based. I think it's also based on how many miles of roads you have. And so they could withhold that. So what would that mean to Kaysville City? Well, it means we don't get our road funding. So either that means projects don't happen, roads become worse. There has been some mention with some of the public comments, the city is actively working on a small area plan. I was able to get $132,000 of grant funding for that plan. We could be ineligible to receive grant funding like that. So those are some of the negative consequences that could happen, as well as being fined, I think it's like $250 or $500 a day. I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at state code, but anyway, that's a very brief overview of the moderate income housing.
And I think it's worth mentioning too, that the city doesn't go out and like actively look at properties and say, hey, you know, we want this to be developed this way. It's that when the applications come to us, you know, we feel the need to take a close look at it, and it's not an automatic, you know, rubber stamp type of a thing. I feel like that's just something worth being aware of, you know, that it's not the city's not put pressure on property owners to comply with a certain density, and, you know, at the same time, we're not, you know, just automatically granting, you know, zoning changes and things.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, we process applications. We don't go out and, I mean, if we owned the property, that would be different. But we don't go out and actively seek applications on property that is privately owned. It's applications come in, we process them. Another question that came up was just, you know, the infrastructure. There is adequate capacity for water, sewer, power. There are no capacity issues for infrastructure. The sewer district, I know Jake had spoken to sewer district, I spoke to sewer district, so we don't have any concerns about the capacity of any of that infrastructure. I've heard a few comments tonight that the city increased the parking over here, added the parking over here specifically for the ice cream shop. That's not true. We did it collectively just to try and help all of the Main Street businesses. It probably is the ice cream shop that uses it the most. But it was really that change on Center Street came out of some efforts that actually started before I was with the city, but partnerships. So Main Street is a UDOT facility. I think there also was a grant for this, but UDOT, the city, and the businesses on Main Street all kind of took some time to envision what could help the businesses over there, and adding parking on streets that Kaysville City can control was one of those items that we could do. And striping is a pretty inexpensive project considering other options. So that was really targeted towards all of the Main Street businesses and not just for one particular business. And then, yes, I did want to just address, so Davis School District has a formula that they use when calculating the amount of students. A project like this, so they use 0.1 for apartments. That would be 1/10 of a student per apartment. For a townhome unit, it's at 0.25, and then for single family, it would be 0.89. So this project would only generate 7.39 children. I don't know what that 0.39 would look like, but you know, all that to say, this would not, townhome projects, apartments really don't tend to generate a lot of school-age children. And I believe actually that calculation is more for elementary school kids. But nonetheless, a project like this, you know, would be likely to generate 7 or 8 students for the elementary school.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, despite the fact that there's still construction out in West Kaysville, that school populations are actually going down right now, so.
Yes, that is true. There are several, well, I know at least a couple of the elementary schools, specifically on the west side, the enrollment is decreasing, and I think it's understandable when you look at, you know, why that would be, because it's too expensive for young families to come and live in those areas. I think that covers most of the questions that came up that I wanted to address.
I have a question for you. You know, this would be a lot of commercial space, and you know, a lot of it might be something like an office that you know, is used by the homeowner or something like that. What do you have any feel on Kaysville's occupancy rate with commercial space?
Yes, we, so as part of the small area plan project that we're working on right now, there was part of the consultant team that did a market analysis, and the vacancy rate in Kaysville is incredibly low. There is a huge demand for any type of retail commercial space. I think actually the vacancy rate is really kind of unheard of, especially where you had some very interesting economic changes that came out of the pandemic. But I think, I would think most of these units would be live work. So it would be somebody that is commuting downstairs and not necessarily having, you know, people coming to that business. I don't envision that this would be a huge demand on, you know, retail commercial space and parking, specifically for some of those interior units and those that wouldn't have the good frontage, so. Yeah, that market analysis, I believe, is on the Small Area Plan Project website, so if anybody wanted to look at those. But yeah, there's a huge demand for that type of commercial space in Kaysville.
Can I just ask, what is her role in the city? I'm just trying to understand, because she seems very, very knowledgeable.
She
But it sounds like.
You're very perceptive.
Yeah, I mean,
She is.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, wow, but I don't know her role within. She
Yeah.
works for the city, she is.
Thank you. We'll,
Yeah.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, a couple of other questions for staff. And I think, Ann, on page 1 of 9, you point out that the application before us is to move from agricultural to central commercial with a mixed-use overlay.
Correct.
Okay? Right now, the map of the zoning, this parcel in its entirety is religious.
That is the designation on the future land use map. We don't have a religious use zoning designation.
On the future land use map.
Right, it has a category for religious sites on the future land use map, but that is not reflected in any of our zoning designations in our code.
What I'm going to is, must a rezone of this parcel be central commercial, or I'm gonna pick one at random, no thought to this. Could it be mixed-use commercial?
So when we look at rezones, there are really, aside from the details of the specific application, the two kind of primary things that we as staff really take into consideration is, one, the future land use map. That really is a product of the vision from the general plan, saying this is at a very high level what we see areas of the city being in terms of general usage. And then the general plan also speaks to, the vision of the city and what is hoped for and encouraged. So we look at those two things with every rezone application. And so let's say you have an application that is really strongly supported by the general plan, lots of components that speak to it in favor, but maybe the future land use map doesn't really match up. There's not a clear connection there. It does it plays a role in our consideration of whether we recommend approval, but it is not a black and white. If it doesn't match, it doesn't.
We weigh those things, but
Right.
we're not constricted to a
Correct.
specific type of rezone at this location.
Correct. If we were in a state with mandatory general plans, that would be a different story, but because Utah has advisory general plans, it is aspirational, but we're not mandated to follow the future land use map zoning parcels. Of course.
And I think that the designation in the future land use map of this, showing this as religious,
Yes.
was probably just based on the fact that there was a church there.
Right.
And nobody really anticipated, at least that they could foresee, that it was going away anytime soon.
Right.
So, not that anybody wanted to encourage anything different, but it doesn't mean that something different couldn't happen.
yeah. Yeah, sorry, I was a little distracted. What was your? Yeah, I think that'd be a valid question we have for you.
So we worked with staff to find like what's the best fit, and we looked at what's around. So on two sides, it's CC, the Zions Bank is CC, and really the rest of Main Street, like this block between Main Street and First South, is CC going north. And so it felt like it fit, and then the mixed use overlay allowed for kind of the mixed use, and that was the idea of using the two. And even the unit count, I know the units, the amount of units is a sticking point. It wasn't just a proverbial, we picked an amount of units. It was really, I don't own it currently. I haven't bought it. I haven't paid for it. I have it under contract with the parishes. I knew what their number was, and we just worked our way backwards to say, how many units does it take to make this work so you guys can get the most out of your land? And then worked with staff to say what fits the model of like general plan, what's around, and that's what kind of drove the CC zone and the mixed use. Same thing with the commercial. I think we're fairly flexible on that. If that becomes the sticking point with city council, we'd be happy to talk through, can we lessen that less than 15%? We were just trying to play within the box as much as we could. So ultimately, like, that's why I say for the parish's standpoint, I'd also, we're gonna live here, my wife would probably support it initially. When she heard townhome, she's like, we're really gonna live next door? But if it could be 12 units, that'd be great, but that probably means I can only pay half of what I have it under contract for to the parishes. So it doesn't really, as dumb as it sounds, it doesn't really hurt me. We'd love to do this project. It's a dream project. It's not one that I'm doing to like make money on. It's doing to like live in. And ultimately, like, the numbers have to make sense to be able to get it financed. So that's the driving force with the unit count. If it goes down, it'll go down. It might mean the parishes won't sell it to me because I can't pay them as much as I have it under contract for. But anybody who wants to do anything, the parishes as well, the only thing this can be used for right now, because it's 1.6 acres, is exactly what's there. So it has to be rezoned no matter what.
Okay. And I mean, I guess we take it for granted that our names are up here and you know who we are. This is Melinda Greenwood is our Community Development Director for the city. Ann McNamara, she's the Senior Planner for the city. Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I go ahead and kind of kick off some discussion?
Yeah.
Maybe just generally, I want to start it off by saying that, you know, most of you know that I was a professional urban planner for my entire career, did this for about 40 years. And in that time frame, whenever we have new development that's been proposed, wherever I've worked, it's generally oftentimes met with resistance. People don't like change. They don't like to see things be different. And yet, cities are not static. They change. And they especially change if we grow. And we're growing. We have kids, and the kids have got to live somewhere. And that pretty much argues for the fact that things are not going to stay static. They're not going to stay the way they are. And I don't think we would want things to stay static, because when you look at communities that are not growing, they're not oftentimes very desirable places. So to say, you know, that we don't want to see things change, that's not realistic, that's not desirable in my thinking. Now, is this proposal something that's worthwhile and that may produce something that would be beneficial to the community? And we look at that, and of course we have our plans to guide us, and we spend a lot of time on those plans, and staff has done a good job in analyzing that and giving us the rationale for what may happen here. And I think by and large, what's being proposed here is not bad. And that's because we're close to Main Street, we're right adjacent to the Zions Bank property, we're adjacent to Center Street and across from the City Hall. And so there are, as it was pointed out by some of the comments here, there are already multiple units, unit property, in the area. So it would not be that big of a change to see this kind of development take place there. Our mixed-use zone requires that there's a certain percentage of it to be commercial. And I think a lot of our mixed-use zone was envisioned that it would go along areas where you would have, you know, a good potential for commercial use, and then kind of mix it with residential. We're kind of seeing that as the proposal develops down along north of 200 North and along 500 West down there. And some of that's happening there. This property is interesting to me. I suspect partly that they're asking for the mixed use so that they can get the higher density, the more units. But that dictates that the ground level would have to be some kind of commercial use. I will tell you, so for those of you who may not know, I was planning director of Salt Lake City for 8 years. in that time, we had a requirement in Salt Lake City along many of the major streets and in the downtown area that for multi-unit projects, ground level had to be commercial. Developers would put that in accordance with what was required, and so many of those just remained vacant. It was not a good marketing ploy. It didn't work very well. And that gives me a little bit of concern here. The difference here is those in Salt Lake City that I was familiar with, those were leased, centrally leased. And the residents that lived above them, they did not have any interest in that ground level commercial. In this case, you know, they're talking about selling the commercial with the residential space. That might be good, but I also still would have concerns about that. But when I asked the question and found out that there is no restriction on them turning that space into residential, maybe it makes it work, but then we're not really truly a mixed-use zone any longer. Then we're becoming more of a residential zone. So I don't know, you know, Ann or Melinda, what is our highest density residential zone that we have in the city? What's the number of units per acre we can get in our highest density zone?
RM, and the math on it is, I think, hold on, it's 15.
About 15 units per acre?
15.5.
Okay.
And the math on this one is 16.8.
Yeah, so we're pretty close.
Yeah.
So I wonder if it might not be better to look at it as being a high density, higher for us. I mean, 15 units per acre is not, certainly not in a place like Salt Lake City or many other cities. That's not really high density, but for us, that's high density. I wonder if it might be more appropriate to look at it as a high density residential zone in the city rather than as a mixed use zone. I don't know, you know, I think there were some good points that were made that were saying if there is potential for residential, or for, I'm sorry, for commercial, get it to go in some of the spaces that we have on Main Street. But as Melinda already pointed out, we don't have a lot of vacant commercial space. So
We also don't control the rent on Main Street.
Yeah.
It's not up to us.
yeah, very good point.
So
So I have some concerns about that. I'm not sure. But if the people that buy those units, it's great if they can use that for home office space or something like that. But somebody could do that anyway, you know, when you buy a home. I mean, I have an office in my basement. So that's something that people can do regardless. In this case, it may just allow for more of a commercial type of use if someone had an idea to do that, which may be some benefit. But I'm not sure, I'm not really settled on this idea of the mixed use zone overlay going here because I just have concerns about those ground level areas actually becoming or being used for commercial. There was a comment also made about the lack of green space here, and I share that concern a little bit. I look at this and I think there's really not a lot of green space here. And that's something that I think is a little bit of a concern. So those are my main points right now, Mr. Chair, and I'm happy to entertain some discussion.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Summercorn's done a better job of explaining some of the things that I was exploring with staff on, is this the proper zone? Is this the proper density? Should we have, by my count, 7 to 10 commercial units on the perimeter? Would that alleviate some of the parking and density issues? And that's what I was exploring with the MU zone and the commercial zone. If the densities proposed here are practical, is it practical to have a commercial property on an interior, I'm going to use the word alley. And in my professional career as a commercial lender, I would really struggle on the feasibility of those commercial units on the interior spaces and occupancy.
It seems to me like if the concern is keeping businesses in those commercial units, why not open it to the opportunity to have a commercial there? I think if we could maintain it, it would be a benefit to the community, particularly where it's Center Street, just adjacent to Main Street. If it's not something that, you know, people are supporting, if we can't really get around walkable, you know, markets, then there's flexibility for it to be whatever it needs to be. If it's a home office, I mean, I don't feel like this is going to be a major challenge because we're going to pack in the people. The challenge is, can we get some viable commercial use here? I don't see the harm in opening it up to a commercial, to a mixed-use zone, where if we can, great. If we can use some, you know, additional space, if everything's mostly maxed out on our Main Street, and bring in some, I think is very charming, would be something that I would be quite intrigued to visit. I think it would be awesome if there were a lot of little boutique shops in there. Sounds like it'll probably be a lot of home offices realistically, but I think it would be beneficial. And would I want that to be my neighbor? Yes, I think that it looks, we're generally looking for some places to have just a little more density, a little more opportunity, like a variety of, you know, housing development. And to me, this seems to be the ideal location and a thoughtful plan that they've brought in some architectural integrity so that it can blend seamlessly with our Main Street. I think it would be a shame to not utilize that opportunity.
Yeah, I'd agree with a lot of those points, particularly along the main roads like Center Street there, to have some commercial options and especially to have the mixed use, where I feel like it is a softer transition into areas that are fully residential. I share some of the same concerns, I think, with some of those internal units and how viable those office spaces or commercial spaces would be, what they would eventually really be used for. And I would wonder if, you know, we would want to, you know, in particular, maintain the commercial use, you know, along the street there. But, you know, also one of the things that helps maintain walkable commercial areas like Main Street is having residents who live close enough to walk there. And that means having some density close by to keep those businesses going. And you know, this is a kind of a prime spot. It is a high density. I didn't love it when I found out that it was higher than RM, although just barely. You know, that being our highest density that we have. And you know, when you are worried if you're worried about the density, you know, that's fair. But it is something that's allowed in Kaysville. It's something that exists in Kaysville. And I would guess that most people don't know where those areas are. That the impact is not quite the dramatic impact that people have. And there's a reason that, you know, there are reasons we have those limits. You know, and this is what's keeping us from getting to what people would call real high density. The height restrictions, you know, they're very similar. I spent a lot of time thinking about the school, because I know a lot of people had commented about the school. And I went through all the other elementary schools I could think of in the area, and there are some that are on much busier streets, and there are some that are surrounded by much higher density housing, and they seem to exist fine. You know, I think our worries are valid, but not as dramatic as we tend to, think when something new is coming in. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positives here, but there are a few concerns that I have as well. If we were to like divide it up, the point about the two units that are to the south end and the height restriction there, like I would really support that, like limiting their height, to help ease the transition into the houses that are to the south there. As far as the density, I tried to do just kind of a rough calculation of the number of units that were on the block to the east. And I came up with 23 or 24. And, putting 26 in here, yeah, that would make that block more, a little higher. It would just be packed into that corner. So, imagine if that whole block were turned into the same type of residence that, the Zions Bank and everything became houses. We're actually pretty close to what the surrounding area, like as far as number of units, would be. And so that kind of eased a little bit of the concern of the super high density, but.
Mr. Chair, maybe just a couple of more thoughts. One of the reasons I support something like this is because, we have a housing crisis. There is no question about that, and the state is taking a lot of actions to try and get communities to address that and to try to figure out some way to allow for more affordable housing to be built. I share the concern. I'm not sure this is really going to be affordable. And that may be something else to consider or to take a look at. But just by, the simple law of supply and demand, the more housing you get, the more it'll tend to drive down pricing. But I think we're going to need a lot more housing before we really see an effect on the price. But for that very reason, I would support something like that. Now, do I support something like this anywhere in the city? No, I don't. I think we certainly have neighborhoods where it's not appropriate to do this kind of density, this type of housing, in the middle of an existing neighborhood. But in an area like this, where it's so close to Main Street, adjacent to another commercial property, and to some main streets, to me, it fits. I mean, I think it would fit. The concerns that I have, first of all, I think there's the good point one of our fellow commissioners there made is about the building design. I would like to see some renderings for what the buildings would look like, especially those that front on the street, if they're at all different, to try and kind of, make it fit a little bit better into the area and the neighborhood. And I really do think there needs to be some more green space, which probably will mean losing some units. But I just think that there's just not enough green space in it. And since we are doing this by development agreement, those are the kinds of things I think before granting a rezone, we're also going to be granting a development agreement, and these are the kinds of things we could ask for and look for in a development agreement.
Yeah, location is, from kind of a neutral perspective, it really is a pretty good spot there, right next to, there's no housing to the north.
It's close to public transportation.
Yeah, public transportation. To the east, we have thanks to the Bamberger, we have one of the widest streets. I mean, that actually, in my mind, kind of helps keep that transition, you know, where you have this extra wide street. I tried to do some math with parking, and on the block to the north, they have angled parking on both sides. And even then, the street in the middle is still wider than what you'd have on a regular street with parallel parking. And
So, Melinda, you put this picture up of the renderings. Is that an actual proposed rendering that's part of the package and part of the development agreement as what's shown here?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So, yep, these were submitted by the applicant and would be included as an attachment to the development agreement that they would need to fit this type of architectural style and look.
Okay.
I'm not sure I have a lot to contribute to the conversation except for need for denser housing. We're right between Salt Lake and Ogden. Salt Lake is, of course, the biggest city in Utah. Ogden is number 9. Layton is number 11 in the state. And do you know that Kaysville is actually bigger than Farmington? Kaysville's 34, Farmington's 39. This is as August of this year, these statistics. And so to think, not in my backyard, we're the sandwich, we're in the middle of it. And it's something that I think we have to deal with and not try to run away from. Also the idea of maybe not now, well, when? And if not this space, then what space? So I think eventually we're gonna have to kind of bite the bullet and start making changes. I think this is a good location. I'm not exactly sure about the number of units. I do have some concerns, but I think it's unfeasible to think that we can stay a sleepy town without losing funding and having your taxes go way, way up. So weigh it out, because we've got to change.
yeah,
That's growing.
Yeah, and it's tough, and I, you know, for one, I think most of us do, is like with every proposal we get, I think most of us imagine, you know, what if this were going in close to where I live? We all live in Kaysville, that's why we're on the commission. There's some spaces near my house, and I think about, like, someday that's gonna be developed, and it's balancing the right of a private property owner to develop a piece of property, and then of course the city having zoning. I mean, a lot of the things are really not that different. I believe the zoning height for the surrounding area is 30 feet. The commercial area, Main Street, is 35. This is really right there. Parking, you know, 2-car garage. I know a lot of townhomes that don't have 2-car garages. There's a lot of duplexes by where I live that have a 1-car garage. And yeah, people will decide kind of what they want to do with that. But I mean, these are not. And I think, you know, sometimes we think, well, if it's not going to help, you know, lower income. I don't know that if we told all the applicants, we'll bring back something that will sell for $200,000 or $300,000, we're not going to be happy with that.
Yeah, it's really hard to make that happen without
Do you know what
some kind of
Kaysville's
assistance.
median is, housing? The low and high end?
Housing cost?
The cost for housing?
We're up in the multiple millions for high end.
For high end.
And
Yeah, I mean,
low
the-
end, probably 200,000-ish, thereabouts, I bet, maybe on the
I
low
think
end.
I would guess it's higher than that.
I don't,
Yeah, maybe,
yeah.
I would
don't-
guess it's
don't-
more like 4.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the small area plan market analysis said it was in the 600s. I'd have to double check that.
The low end.
Yeah, okay.
Median.
Probably the median, yeah.
One of the things I'm kind of struggling with is that, I mean, they're asking for the mixed-use overlay. And we created that mixed-use zone in order, you know, for a specific purpose. And part of it was to get some commercial use mixed in there with it. Again, as I say, I mean, I don't know that this property or where this is located is an ideal commercial space. but there could be some benefit, especially along Center Street. There might be some benefit there. They're asking, so the zone, the overlay requires 30% of the space to be commercial. They're asking for it to be 15%, so it's already down. And if we allow that space, if we don't have any restrictions on it, that it can't be converted to residential, my guess is we're gonna wind up with a lot less than even 15% in the end. And are we circumventing what the mixed-use zone was intended for originally in doing that? I love keeping the option open so that someone could say, well, yeah, like the one gentleman here said, I'd put my business down in there. That's great. I don't know how many people there really are that would do that. But leaving the option open would be great. But are we really going to find ourselves, not thinking that we achieved what we wanted to achieve if a lot of it doesn't turn commercial?
Yeah, that's a great point, because I thought about that with the 15%, and I thought, well, maybe that's, a softer transition that's more amenable to the neighborhood. But it could go to that point where it really is just circumventing what mixed use is all about.
In that case, would you suggest an RM zone?
Well, see, and I think that's where I thought it might be more appropriate to do that, to stay consistent with what maybe is really going to happen. But then we've taken away that option or that opportunity for some of them who may want to do that as commercial to happen. So I'm a little bit torn on that one question.
And there is some allure to this. I mean, there's that flexibility. I mean, there really is some intrigue into this design, and at least to me, I mean, it's creative. It's flexible. There's a lot of good points to it. Like just going straight to residential, I don't know,
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not sure anybody would be more happy with RM zone than they would with mixed use.
Yeah,
To be honest.
I agree. I think that's true.
In fact, doesn't housing have more traffic issues than commercial?
No, usually commercial generates more. But we're talking about not very big commercial spaces here, so. So where do we go?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was about to say. What's our next step here? We've kind of worked late into the evening.
Yeah, I might be willing to try a motion, Mr. Chair, if you're ready for one.
I have no concerns if you want to make a motion.
I think I would, at this point, make a motion to continue this in order to allow for a couple of things to happen, to take a look at additional green space. And maybe you all, I haven't heard anybody else chime in on that, and if you don't like that, let's not put that in there, but I kind of think it needs some more green space, which probably will mean losing a few units. And then also to have some additional consideration about the commercial space and how that gets treated. Whether it's appropriate to do the MU zone or rather do the RD zone.
We have a motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Discussion on the motion. I agree with the
Chair,
idea. Oh,
If I may, I just would, normally we like to continue to a date specific.
Oh, okay.
So the public who is here could be informed on when to come back, however.
I'm reluctant to continue it to the next meeting, Melinda, because I think we got a really big item on that.
Yes, please do not.
Yeah.
And everyone who might be interested in coming back, they don't want to come sit through that either. So, the next agenda, I know there's due diligence and in contract and whatever, but I would say September 11th, definitely not the 28th. We'll have the Symphony Homes rezone.
Yeah.
So
I would then include in the motion to continue it to September 11th.
My second would stand September 11th.
Just discussion, then I would echo that I think that's a positive thing is, we tend to make, not that we make bad decisions, but I hate trying to squeeze something in. And there's definitely more to talk about on this, I think, than to try to, make things happen tonight. I don't love the idea of, having to postpone it an entire month to then continue it, but that's kind of how it works, and any other discussion? Okay, we'll vote on the motion then. We'll start here with Paul.
Aye.
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 All right, so this motion, or this subject will be continued on September 11th. We have a few more items, so we're going to continue the meeting. If you feel that you're going to slip out, we appreciate you coming here and being part of the city and having your voice heard here. We will move on to item number 7, approval of the minutes from the June 26, 2025 Planning Commission meeting.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the June 26th meeting as recorded in our records.
We have a motion? A motion to approve the minutes. Any seconds?
I did not attend that meeting, so I'm looking at
I'm going to abstain as well, so.
I'll second it.
All right. Do we have enough voting people? So you
Unless-
three were not
unless
present
you
for that meeting?
I have to abstain,
so
Yeah. I
wasn't there.
No?
Yeah.
Put that on the
All right.
next agenda.
Do we need more than what we've got that were at the meeting?
Well, sorry, how many can vote?
So 3, if
Three
you're
of us.
comfortable voting.
I think we should probably continue it.
Okay, let's not do it
Yeah.
at this meeting.
Because I think you have to have, well, let's see, we have 6. I think the bylaws say you have to have a majority of the quorum present. Yeah, so I don't think yes, we could put these on the 28th.
Yeah.
Put the minutes on the 28th. Yeah, so we can move them to the next agenda.
So be it. Other matters?
Okay, yes, so another long evening ahead of us on the 28th. We should be mailing out notices tomorrow for the Symphony Homes rezone. So I would anticipate, well, a repeat of last summer.
Is this
A full house.
west of Sunset? And is that
Yes, it's-
that
yes.
Symphony
Yeah.
project?
Yep, the Symphony and the Ivory Homes property, so 52 acres. Yeah, I would anticipate that we'll have a lot of individuals who will show up to comment.
I just saw the rule that meetings can't go past 10 PM, so we're
Right.
gonna
Without
stick
a
to
motion,
that.
Not without a motion, but yes. Or, yeah, there you go. We did get several registered for the APA conference. I think, David, we've got you registered. Aaron, I think you were registered as well. What other commissioner? Okay, so if anyone else wants to attend that APA conference, the registration is still open. So we'll send out another reminder about that. Yeah, we also on the 28th will have a small rezone from Phil Holland for some property. They redrew the lot lines, and this would be a rezone from general commercial to R114. Probably less controversial than the other one that evening. And it would just be like a small, if it gets approved, it'll be a 4-lot subdivision, so.
Where's it at?
It is, actually, let me pull up the public hearing notice and I can just show you. Okay, here it is. Drag it over there. So it is near where that new stake center, LDS Stake Center, is going to start construction right here off of 200 North and Angel Street. So this, they did a property line adjustment essentially between this parcel and this parcel. And so instead of having this really long, deep commercial property, the lot line was drawn over to here. So this grassy plains drive would, they would put a cul-de-sac in there and put 4 lots. So, normally you don't want to lose commercial property to residential, especially in Kaysville, we're so limited on commercial opportunities. But the viability, again, of a very long, deep lot like that just probably is not there. So that'll be on the agenda. We'll have that on the agenda prior to the Symphony Home rezone. So that one will be a lot more straightforward. We are, I think we're planning on the second open house for the small area plan to be on September 9th or 10th. So a save the date for that. We will get more information out to the public about timing on that. So that would be another open house we would host here at the city offices. And the small area plan survey is open. Wait, no, it closed.
It just closed the, 14th?
Or no, it closes the 17th.
Oh, was it 17th?
So
It closes the 17th.
Yeah, so that is open for a few more days.
How's that
That's
going?
make sure we do another.
We don't have the responses as far as the analytics go, but that's something we should be getting soon from the consultant.
Yeah. Last I heard, which would have been beginning of last week, I think they had like 130 or 40 responses. So, we did really well with that first round of surveys and had over 500 responses. If we even got half as much on this second go round, I think that would be excellent. So we'll put out some more social media posts. We've sent it out in the newsletters, and Mindy's sent it out to the business license, everyone who has a business license. So hopefully we'll get some good responses on that. And then we'll be, obviously, the consultant will kind of download that information and share that with the management team. And then based on that, that's really will kind of conclude, I think, our information gathering in addition to the open house. And then the consultant will start drafting the narrative portion of the plan and kind of taking all of that public input and trying to convey that in a meaningful way through the narrative of the plan.
I really liked the format of the survey. I really liked how it had pictures and allowed people to, think through, prioritize. I like the educating the public aspect of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I think that was well done.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what what all of it means.
Yeah. And I'd encourage you guys, if you have social media, just to share that link.
Yes, that would
I
be.
did, and I've had a lot
Yeah.
of neighbors talk to me, so.
Oh, good. Yeah,
So it's-
that's
yeah,
exactly
it's
what we'd like
helpful.
to see. So I will say this, unfortunately, we've had some very limited participation in some of our stakeholder groups. We kind of created a couple different stakeholder groups, a historic Main and then a North Main Street. And, you know, invited, I don't know, I think the North Main Street was 24 people and we had one come. And it was Jerry Goodspeed, who's Utah State. So I've been pretty disappointed to see the lack of responsiveness, especially like these, you know, like we gathered contact information and looked at businesses and thought of like who might be, you know, in a good contributor, and it's been honestly disappointing. So
Why do you think they're not participating?
I don't know. The historic Main Street one was, I think we had 3, maybe 4 people participate.
Yeah.
So I don't know if people are just busy, if they're just tuned out and tired. But it's been unfortunate, especially, right? Because a lot of this is we are trying to focus on the city center, the commercial area, and I would think that businesses would, those property owners and business owners would want to come and share their thoughts. So that has been disappointing, but we'll still forge ahead and use just the input from the public and the, you know, the surveys and the open houses and the tabling events that the consultant has gone out there and done. So we're still wanting to get that adopted November, December timeframe. And also in the next couple weeks, we will be kicking off a general plan process, really mostly internally, but there's also state code that requires us to get a water element included into our general plan by the end of the year. So our intention with that, because we don't have a whole lot of land left to be developed, and because we purchase water, we don't produce water. I don't think we're going to do a lot of public involvement in that. So we'll probably just have the public involvement portion be the public hearing with the Planning Commission here. And the bulk of the work and effort on that will be coordinating with our, it's pretty technical in its requirements, but we'll be coordinating with our outside engineering group that does our water modeling and our water provider, which is Weber Basin, as well as our irrigation providers. So these types of things are a lot of work. We're actually using the same consultant to help us do that, that's working on the small area plans. That way I don't have additional people to coordinate with. And I also was able to get a grant from the state for $15,000 to do that work. So that'll be something that will be coming to the Planning Commission this fall as well for adoption by the end of the year. And I better stop talking because we only have 3 minutes before we have to adjourn.
We all turn into pumpkins.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Just remember your homework. We got to pick a vice chair next time. I'm going to be gone on the 11th, so you don't want to
Okay.
leave that out up in the wind, you know. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, with
No
that.
other items on the agenda. The meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Oh, standing up. I thought about standing up halfway through the meeting and like, that